Okie dokie, let's talk about goaltenders. And let's go back to 1967 because that's always how far I go back with this stuff. The 1967 goaltending for the Chicago Blackhawks right through till 2018 has been a mixed bag. And it starts off pretty solid. 67 68, they have DeJordy and Dryden. And of course, they had just lost Glenn Hall before this season. 68 69 is DeJordy and Dryden again. Easy for me to say. 69 70, Tony Esposito comes on the scene, plays 63 games, and nobody plays the prerequisite 20 games to get on the board other than him. 70 71, it's Esposito and Gary Desjardins. 71 72, it's Esposito and Gary Suitcase Smith. 72 73, it's Esposito and Smith again. 73 74, Esposito plays 70 games. Nobody else plays 20. Esposito plays 71 games in 74 75. He plays 68 games in 75 76. 69 games in 76 77. 64 games in 77 78. 63 games in 78 79. 69 games in 79 80. And 66 games in 80 81. Tony Esposito is Chicago goaltending from 1973 until 1981. Nobody else plays 20 games in a Chicago jersey as a goaltender until 81-82 when it's Esposito and Murray Bannerman. And Bannerman was seen as a pretty solid young goaltender with a lot of potential, and he never really quite became that guy. 82-83, Bannerman is the guy getting the starter minutes, Esposito's the backup, and then the descent of Esposito became pretty abrupt. 83-84, Bannerman plays 56 games, nobody else plays 20. 84-85, Bannerman is your starter, and Skorodensky is the backup. And of course, I did the video on Skorodensky a few weeks ago. 85-86, Bannerman leads the league or leads the team in minutes, and Sauve is the backup. 86-87, Bob Sauve becomes the starter with Bannerman as the backup. And 87-88, they go with a clean slate. Darren Pang's your starter, and Bob Mason is the backup. In 88-89, Pang, Chevrier, and Belfour. So, Alain Chevrier's there. Panger's out in 89-90. Cloutier and Chevrier are your goaltenders. That's Jacques Cloutier. And Alain Chevrier again. 90-91, in comes Eddie the Eagle. And after a cup of tea here, he ends up playing 74 games in 90-91. By cup of tea, I mean a little over 20 games. 91-92, Belfour is your starter. Hasek's the backup. Hasek, of course, moves on. 92-93, Belfour is your starter, and Jimmy Waite's the backup. So Waite played over 20 games that year. And Waite was one of those guys who, again, Chicago's kind of had a history of guys who were well thought of goalies coming up, and then it just doesn't quite work out for them. 93-94, Belfour's the starter, Hackett's the backup. 94-95, Belfour plays 42 games that year. That's a lockout shortened season. And nobody else projected to play 20 games that year. 95-96, it's Belfour and Hackett again. 96-97, Hackett actually plays more games than Belfour that year. 97-98, Hackett's the starter and Terreri's the backup. 98-99, in comes Jocelyn Thibault with Fitzpatrick as the backup. 99-2000, Thibault's the starter and Passmore's the backup. And it's mentioned a few times on TV. Passmore is a bad name for a goaltender. It's not a good... It's sort of like Lettinen, Passmore, don't know. 2000-2001, Jocelyn Thibault plays 66 games. Nobody else plays 20. 2001-2002, it's Thibault and Passmore again. 2002-2003, Thibault plays 62 games that year. So Thibault plays a lot of hockey. And I have to say, he played very well for Chicago. He was a very solid goaltender in his time in Chicago. And again, the biggest thing for Thibault is he'll always be known as he's a guy who was traded for Patrick Roy. Whatever. He was a pretty solid goaltender in his own right. 2003-2004, they used 6 goalies. Leighton and Anderson are the only ones that play 20 games that year. 2005-2006, Habby Boolin's the starter with Craig Anderson as the backup. 2006-2007, Habby Boulin, 60 games played. Nobody else plays 20. 2007-2008, Habby Boolin's the starter. Patrick Lalime is the backup. 2008-2009, it's Habby Boulin again, and Cristobal Huet is the backup. 2009-2010, Huet's your starter, and Niemi's the backup until the playoffs, when, of course, Antti Niemi goes on a nice little run there, and they win a Stanley Cup with him in net. They reward their Stanley Cup winning goaltenders by going with Crawford and Turco the year after. Crawford has been marinating in the minors long enough, and the Hawks figure he's ready, and they're right. So Crawford's the starter, Turco plays the backup minutes. 2011-2012, it's Crawford and Emery, and they stick with that tandem for 2012-2013. 2013-2014, it's Crawford and Raanta. 2014-2015, Crawford plays 57 games, nobody else plays 20. 2015-2016, it's Crawford and Darling, the same tandem they had in 2016-2017. And this past season, Forsberg played starter minutes because Crawford was hurt, but Crawford still gets on the board, having played more than 20 games. And none of the other goalies that came through Chicago get on the board, but they used 6 this past season as well, equaling the total they had in 2003-2004. Esposito's on the board 14 times. And yet he never had a goaltender who was his backup who played 20 or more games 2 seasons or longer, or 3 seasons, I should say, or longer. The only tandem that gets on the board is Belfour and Hackett with 3 years for them. Bannerman 6 years, Belfour 8 years, Thibault 5, Habibulin 4, and Crawford is heading into his 9th with Chicago, barring injury, keeping him out of the lineup and not letting him play the 20-game minimum. For goaltenders, they've had 32 since 1967, which is right about middle ground. And again, this period in here definitely caused that number to go higher than what it otherwise would have been, especially with the solid goaltending by Bannerman and Belfour and Esposito along the way, and they stuck with their starters. A lot of backups, though. Since 2000, they've gone through 14 goalies, which is high. It is high for this list and for what I'm keeping track of thus far. And again, when I'm done all 30 teams, not doing Vegas. It's not happening. When I'm done all 30 teams, we'll take a look and see who really has done a lot in terms of keeping their goaltending stable and which ones haven't. But Chicago, pretty stable overall. Since 2000, there's been a lot of turnover. But again, this was a tough time for the organization. The late 90s, early 2000s was a really tough time for the organization. It was not very well run. And then things turned around, and that Patrick Kane guy shows up, and the rest is history. But there you go. The goaltending history of the Chicago Blackhawks. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.